What's up, gamers? How you doing? It's John, and this video, I'm here in my arcade room in my house. This is my favorite room in my house, honestly. I'm a big fan of arcade and pinball machines. I want to talk about the Playchoice 10 because I love this arcade cabinet. This one I have here is a dual screen, dual monitor one. There's different variations of this. This is probably the more common one. This was a lot of times what they took from Punch-Out, not Mike Tyson Punch-Out, but the original arcade Punch-Out by Nintendo. And they converted, a lot of the arcades converted them to Playchoice 10s. So what is a Playchoice 10 arcade? In a nutshell, it's basically an arcade version of the Nintendo Entertainment System, NES. Not to be confused with Nintendo Versus Systems. Those also were released in the 80s. This came out in 1986, so it came out a year after Nintendo hit the market in North America. There are various versions available. There's a dual screen one here, which is my favorite one. There's a single screen one, which is more like Donkey Kong arcade size. There's also a tabletop one, which is super rare and super cool as well. What these were promotional tools for Nintendo to promote upcoming Nintendo games. So imagine, if you will, if you're a kid walking an arcade, you see this Playchoice 10, and the reason why it's called Playchoice 10, because there's actually, you can play up to 10, choose up to 10 games to choose from. These are games that were coming out at the time that were new. So imagine the kid going to the arcade, you put in a quarter, you get 300 seconds to play a game, you can exit the game, check them out. For example, I have games like Turtles on here, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, other ones. Versus is different. Nintendo Versus arcades were also Nintendo games, right? They came out with games like Excite Bike, baseball. They have ones like Super Mario Brothers. I have a Red Tent Cocktail one, which is really cool. There's different ones available. But those were single board games, right? You put in the board. They're not ran off of NES games, even though they were NES games. But in some cases, many cases, those games for the Versus system arcades were different than the home version. For example, Super Mario Brothers for the Versus is a lot more challenging than Super Mario Brothers for the NES or Famicom, right? For the most part, these games for the Playchoice 10, even though you can't play an NES game, there's no way to play it. However, people have released adapters, which I think is really cool. You can actually play Nintendo games now, cartridges on this thing. But what makes this different is there is a board on this thing, and the games look like this. They're different sizes available. So for example, in my right hand, I have Duck Hunt. It does have, there's a light gun. It looks like a real gun, which is cool. It's only orange. And it actually works really well. It's pretty cool. And it's kind of small. Some games are small. And then some games are long. Like this is Trojan. If you never played Trojan by Capcom, it's a lot of fun. It's based on condoms. No, I'm just joking. It's based on an arcade game. That's actually a lot of fun too. Pretty gory for an NES game. Cutting people's heads off, things like that. But one of my first games I ever played for the NES. I love it. And you can see here, it's a little longer. There's a ROM chip in here, each one of these boards that have 8 kilobytes of ROM, which is not much, very much. But what it is, it's an instruction. So on the top screen, top monitor, you have the instructions, and I'll show you how that works in a second. This thing is really cool because you can exchange out games, right? I have 23 different games, only 52 were available. So I have about a little less than half of the collection that were totally released. Games themselves today go for quite a bit. Some games go for over $100 now, which is crazy. When I purchased this thing 10 years ago, I got 10 games for it. I got the arcade, and I paid, I want to say about $800 total for it. I'm not quite sure what these go for now, the arcades themselves, but I can tell you they go for much more than $800. They go for probably 2-3 times that now, which is crazy. So the demand for these things have gone up in value because it's Nintendo, because they're iconic. Now, by 1992, Nintendo stopped producing Playchoice 10 games. There was later on for the Super Nintendo what they call the Super System, which is also an arcade for the Super Nintendo, which is similar kind of promotion idea. Only like 3 or 4 games came out for that. I remember playing like F-Zero and Tennis, and I think Super Mario World was one of them as well. I think maybe the fourth one might have been like Addams Family or some random game, but those are really rare. And if you've ever seen one of those, they come with like a big Super Nintendo controller, which is awesome. I'd love to get my hands on one of those things. They're kind of wide, but those are super cool. I can tell you collecting arcade games and pinball machines, they're kind of like tattoos. Once you get one, it's really addicting. You feel like you need to get another one, right? I have 19 in my total collection, and the hardest thing about collecting arcade games is moving them. They're super heavy. They're like 300 to 500 pounds. They're super heavy, and they just take up a lot of space. But they're a lot of fun, and you don't have to spend too much money on them. You can get some really good ones. I picked up NBA Jam Tournament Edition and Simpsons Arcade, the one behind me here. I got those for, seriously, no joke, $50 total because someone was getting rid of them. My church was getting rid of them, and literally was going to have bulk pick up the city of Chandler where I live, like going to pick them up. And I'm like, no, you can't do that. You got to save these. And they work great. So you can get deals on these things. It's a matter of just moving them. So without any further ado, let's take a closer look at the Playchoice 10. Let me know what you guys think. Games, for the most part, are pretty much the same as the Nintendo port, right? However, there was a game called Goonies, which is based on the movie, that only came out, Goonies 1 only came out for the Famicom. However, it did come out for the Playchoice 10. I'm going to show you that in a second. Never released for the NES. Goonies 2 came out for the NES. It's a pretty fun game. So without any further ado, let's take a closer look. Thanks for watching. So here are the controls. You have your joystick here, which A-directional, which is nice. You also have your B or A, player 2. Channel select, your enter, your game select, your start, and your reset. These buttons here remind me, if you're familiar with the Nintendo M82, which is also a display unit for retail stores, and that button is very similar to the game select here. Okay, let's take a look at both monitors. Here's the top monitor. You can see the marquee, which is really cool. It's kind of between two arcades I have, but the side art is really cool on this thing as well. Nothing displayed on the bottom monitor quite yet. You can see right now I have 10 games. I have Baseball Stars, Super Mario Bros. 2, TMNT, the first one. The arcade one also was released. I don't have that, but that's pretty expensive, very cool. They also had little displays you can put on the top of these things, which was really cool. They came with the game, so you can kind of see what people know, like walking by, what games are on there. Dr. Mario, The Goonies, Tyson's Punch-Out, awesome. Contra, Castlevania. So they also have Tennis, Super Mario Bros. 1. On the right here, you can see how many players can play. So it shows you, there's a reflection there, I apologize. You can see 1 or 2 players. Some of them are single player, so there's no character. Again, sorry about the glare. Channel select, you can also, let's go ahead and select one. Let's check out Mario Brothers. You notice there's no sound. Let's go to start, at least in the intro. We're all familiar with Mario Brothers, of course. Now the line there, this camera's causing that glare. It's a CRT, original CRT. On the very top, you'll see the instructions, which is really cool, I think. And there's 2 pages here. So you hit enter. You can see the instructions, shows you kind of what you do. You get Fiery Mario, which is awesome. So a little different. Of course, you have the timer here. It's set to unlimited time play. I have it set to the settings there, but normally you do get 300 seconds for every quarter. And after 300 quarters, it would tell you if you want to add more, or it would just, end the game for you. We'll go into reset. Let's check out Goonies. Okay, there you go to focus. You can see the game. There's only 1 page of instructions. Oh, there's a couple actually here. I stand corrected. Really cool. Some games only have 1 page. And then here's the game itself. If you play it for the Famicom, really fun. I love the soundtrack of this as well. I'm going to play it with one hand here, playing through camera, so bear with me. Doesn't really follow the movie very well. I don't remember rats or mice in the movie very well. But the soundtrack is definitely stellar. Here's the bottom of the speakers. There's where the coins would go, the gun. Pretty awesome arcade for sure. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Really appreciate your time. Leave a comment below. If you guys remember playing this in the arcade, I think it's really cool. Personally, it's one of my favorite items in my gaming collection. We'll see you guys soon. Take care, and of course, game on.